Chapter 56, Casper. I yelled after him. He ignored me and continued to walk towards the bedroom door. My throat was closing up with each step he took. I crawled to the edge of the bed, still clutching my blanket, and called after him. Casper, wait. But he didn't even turn his head, not even to spare me a parting glance. He simply walked to the bedroom door, opened it, and closed it quietly behind him. There was no temper tantrum, or yelling, or even slamming of the door. He just left. Casper, I whispered into the empty room. Come back, please. His footsteps drifted down the corridor, getting further and further away, and the reality began to sink in. Oh God, he really was leaving me. He'd finally had enough of me. I wanted to run after him, to tell him I was sorry and beg him to take me back. But then I looked over to the tapestry hanging on the wall, and I was painfully reminded of all the reasons why I couldn't. I sunk down into the mattress and drew my knees into my chest and started to cry. Burying my face into a pillow, I sobbed, Please, Casper, please come back. I can't do this without you. Lord knows how I wished to go after him, but I couldn't. If I did, then he'd want an explanation that I couldn't give him. There was no possible way of explaining what had happened without endangering us both. Miserably, I conceded I'd have no other choice than to wait for him. So, I just have to believe that by tomorrow morning, he'll have calmed down and would be thinking about coming to see me. I mean, he can't just abandon his pregnant wife, could he? I hugged my pillow closer and shut my eyes. Silently, I prayed to whichever God was listening and asked for Casper to come back to me safe, unharmed, and in a forgiving mood. I opened my eyes and stared at the bedroom door, willing him to come back to me. I strained my ears for any footsteps that might be heading my way. I silently fantasized that he'd come bursting through the door and take me in his arms, then kiss away all those terrible thoughts of what my life might be like without him. And so I watched the door and watched. Minutes soon dragged into an hour, and then a single hour turned into hours, yet there was still no sign of him. I'd hoped that he might return to the bedroom after he cooled off, but as more and more time passed, I began to worry that he'd really meant what he'd said. Shit. What if he really meant what he'd said? It felt like my soul was aching for him. I wanted him so badly, it felt like I was in physical pain. Come on, Hazel, stop being so stupid. It's only been a couple of hours, for crying out loud. I snapped at myself. I needed to pull it together. I flipped over onto my back and stared up at the ceiling. A thought flurried across my mind, and I immediately thought, no, I can't. But no sooner had I dismissed it, it came scurrying back into my head and whispered, open the door in your mind and let him back in. I can't, I snapped out loud, but he might never come back if you don't. Those words wrapped around my heart and squeezed tightly like a vice. I couldn't do it. I couldn't risk opening myself up to him, and him seeing everything that could ruin us. But then without him, my life was already ruined. Against my better judgment, I closed my eyes and imagined the room Henrietta had once showed me. The room which housed the door that represented the link between Casper and I. The door which I'd shut to keep him out of my mind. The room swirled in front of me, and I felt my very essence being pulled into the thought, until it felt like I was physically standing in the room staring at the closed door. I focused on the door handle and thought about turning it. Should I do it? Shouldn't I? If I opened the door, then I could call him back to me, but then he might decide to search my mind instead, in which case he might discover what really happened in the bathroom. I didn't know what to do when suddenly, even if you tried to open it, it won't open. A familiar voice echoed across the room. I jerked away from the door and saw Olivia McAdam standing at the opposite end of the room, still in her blood-soaked hospital gown, looking ghastly. Leaning against the adjacent wall, she was casually observing me. She pointed towards the door and repeated, "It won't open anymore." "What?" I replied. "Go on, try it," Olivia said. I turned back towards the door, and with great trepidation tried the handle. Wrapping my fingers around the cool brass handle, I pulled gently down and found that the door handle wouldn't budge. Confused, I tried turning the handle again, a little harder this time, but the handle still wouldn't move. Stepping back, I looked at Olivia and asked, "What's wrong with it?" Olivia hunched her shoulders. "The hell if I know why, and oh, by the way, I'm feeling much better now if you were wondering. The last couple of times we met, I was still struggling with all of this," she said, waving her hand around the big gaping hole in her chest. But I've now acclimatized to the situation, and I'm doing much better. Although to tell you the truth, I'm still a little pissed off. I'm real sorry about what happened to you, I told her. You should be. First you fucked up my arm, and then this, she said, glancing down to her empty chest cavity. Although, technically the arm thing wasn't you. I know it was her who broke my arm that night. She was really pissed off at me. But she's pissed off at everyone. My eyes widened. Wait, you know about Celia? Olivia shrugged. Not a lot. I mostly talk to the burnt chick that seems to like to hang around you. She's the only one who really talks to me. Oh my God. The memories of the burning woman with her peeling skin flashed in front of me. She was the badass who'd KO'd Nico with a silver tray when he was being an asshole. So wait, let me get this straight. You've been talking to all the spirits that hang around me, I said. Olivia nodded. Yep. Congratulations, Field. I've been dragged into your freak show. But why? It makes no sense. Why are you and all those other spirits haunting me? Why not go to heaven or wherever it is we go when we die? I asked. I couldn't understand why they would choose to hang around me. I mean, if I were a ghost and capable of going anywhere, why would I stay in the same place or attach myself to one person? Well, we're stuck here, Olivia said flatly. Stuck? How could she be stuck? Isn't there supposed to be a white light or a tunnel that you're supposed to float into? I asked. Maybe, Olivia sighed irritably. I don't know. I mean, it's not like we're hanging around you out of choice. Someone is stopping us from passing over. What? I replied, confused. Someone is keeping us from passing over, she replied. I fell silent, completely taken aback by what she'd told me. Why would someone stop a soul from moving on? More importantly, why would someone want to stop Olivia McAdam from moving on? It didn't make sense. Do you know why? I asked curiously. Olivia groaned. No, I don't know why. All I know is that I'm fucking cursed to walk around this earth, looking like an extra from a slasher movie. Being dead totally sucks, she snapped. And suddenly, my life problems didn't seem so bad. Okay, I said coolly, let's try this again. Why are you here, Olivia? I told you, Field. I'm trapped. I can't pass on, Olivia said. And what do you want me to do about it? I asked. Olivia dramatically threw her hands up in exasperation and said, I want you to help me. No, I need you to help me. You are the only one we can talk to. You are the only one who can help, Field. I shook my head. I don't know how. I don't know anything about ghosts. But you can see us, retorted Olivia. Yeah, and I can see birds every day. That doesn't make me an ornithologist, I replied. What the hell is an ornithology thingy? Whatever. It doesn't matter. God, why do you have to be such a smart ass? Olivia said, squeezing her eyes shut and massaging her temples. I'm only being honest, I said defensively. Field, look at me. Olivia screamed. I'm missing my damn heart, groaned in frustration. I felt bad for Olivia. I really did, but there was really nothing I could do for her. I wasn't a freaking Ghostbuster or a TV psychic that could send her into the lights. I was a pregnant princess vampire who had a personal life so messed up, it made the guests from the Jerry Springer show almost seem normal. I'm sorry, Olivia. I'm really sorry, but I don't know how to help you, I said. Listen, Olivia said, pointing at the door. Do you want that door open? I hesitated. Yeah, at some point. Then you'll do what we tell you, because if you help us, we'll help you, Olivia said. I looked back at the door and tried the handle again. When it didn't budge, I realized that Olivia and her spooky friends had me in between a rock and hard place. Great. Okay, I said reluctantly. But I've got questions I want answered, I replied. Olivia smirked. Very well. First, I want to know why Celia is haunting me. Then I want to know why that door isn't opening. And then I want to know who is causing all this chaos, I said. I'll try, but I'll need to talk to the others. Like I said, we've been cursed, and whoever did this has been very clever at hiding themselves. For example, there are blanks in memory. I don't know who killed me. I don't remember their face. I just remember... Olivia grimaced and stopped herself before going any further. She painfully gazed down at the hole in her chest and looked away. Feeling guilty, I said, okay, just find out what you can. Then meet me here tomorrow morning. I'll make sure I'm here, waiting for you, I said. Olivia nodded with a fake smile. Great, I'll get going and talk to the burnt woman. Great. Hopefully we can solve this mystery together, I said, feeling less than optimistic. Olivia walked away, her figure fading into nothingness, and just before she disappeared, she glanced over her shoulder and said, "Oh, and one last thing, Field. I'm really sorry for dropping you in this shit. If I'd know the frat were gonna sacrifice you to vampires, I'd probably wouldn't have invited you to the party. Thanks, I guess." Olivia vanished and I fell quiet, overwhelmed by everything that she'd told me. I couldn't understand why Olivia and the others couldn't pass over, or why someone would be stopping them. Was this why Celia was haunting me? Was this her way of trying to reach out for my help? But most importantly, why couldn't I open the door that connected Casper to me? And what would this ultimately mean for us? Chapter 57. For the rest of the day, I lay in bed waiting for someone to bring a fresh change of clothes and a broom to clean up the broken glass in the bathroom. I didn't bother trying to sleep because sleep was impossible. Whenever I tried to put my head on the pillow, my mind would fill with thoughts and troubles of dead girls and broken hearts. Wistfully, I remembered how a sleepless night for me would normally be caused by college essays and presentations, instead of ghosts and an annoying vampire husband. Sitting in bed, I strained my ears to listen out for any sign life out in the corridor. I was surprised no one had checked up on me yet. I thought at least the evil nurse would have come in at some point during the day to check on me, but even she didn't bother paying me a visit. I had half hoped that Caspar might have snuck back into the bedroom to see me, but he didn't. This was probably a good thing, because over the past 8 hours, my feelings for him had been fluctuating between madly in love to just plain old mad. Seriously, if he walked through that bedroom door right now, I don't know whether I would hug him or throw something at him. But secretly, I did want him to come back to me. Without him, I somehow felt less of person, which sounds crazy and feels crazy, but it was true. Somehow he'd become part of me without me even knowing, and now the mere thought of losing him filled me with as much dread and anxiety as losing one of my vital organs. I partly hated myself for this sudden and unexplained complete dependence on this one person. In the past, I'd always prided myself on being independent, strong, and self-reliant. I was never one of these girls who couldn't function without a boyfriend or significant other in their lives. I'd always been able to survive by myself, and now everything had changed. Now, I seemed to rely on everyone. I drew my knees up into my chest and shivered. The fire which had been warming the room had died several hours earlier, and the temperature of the room was now becoming chilly. Pulling the bedsheets around me, I softly hummed a tune to myself, trying to pass the time and break up the mind-numbing silence that filled the room. Outside the room, I suddenly heard footsteps in the distance, coming closer. I straightened up and waited in anticipation for the footsteps to either pass by my door or stop outside. Quietly, in the depths of my heart, I prayed that it was Caspar returning to see me. Holding my breath, I waited to see what would happen. The footsteps stopped outside my door, and there was a light knock. Then the door opened, and Nurse Poison walked in. My heart sank. The nurse beamed at me. "Good evening, Your Highness." Her voice quickly faltered when she saw streaks of brown dried blood that covered my body and clothes. "Oh, dear Lord, what happened to you?" she asked, suddenly choking on her fake smile. "I had an accident in the bathroom," I replied quietly. The nurse turned and looked in the bathroom and gasped when she saw the broken glass and blood on the floor. She took a step towards the bathroom, then paused and in a low voice asked, "Is all of that your blood?" "Yes. I would have probably died if the prince and Captain Nico hadn't replaced my lost blood with their own blood," I replied. "They replaced your blood?" the nurse asked with sudden alarm. "Yes," I said calmly. "And do you know what the weird thing is? Now, I feel completely normal. It's as if my body has had a complete detox." The nurse's expression fell for a second, but she quickly composed herself and said, "Well, you must be hungry for more blood after that." My stomach rumbled in agreement, but I knew that there was no way in heaven or hell I was going to, accept a dirty bag of poisoned blood from this woman. So, with a polite smile, I said, "Actually, I'm not all that hungry right now." The nurse frowned. "Your Highness must eat. I'm on the strictest instructions from the doctor and His Majesty, the King, to make sure you eat well. If you're struggling to eat, I can administer blood to you via an infusion," she said, desperate to fill me poison. I shook my head. "I really don't want to eat right now." The nurse folded her arms across her chest. You must eat, Highness. I'm afraid I can't take no for an answer. If you refuse, then I'll have no other choice but to use more forceful methods of persuasion, she threatened. Immediately, I knew what she is referring to, an injection of sedative. The damn bitch planned on sedating and pumping my veins full of poison if I refused to voluntarily drink her poisoned bag of blood. All she had to do was call the doctors and tell them I was making a scene, then that would be it. The whole medical team would descend down here and sedate my ass, and it would be game over. My heart sank. Shit, once again I was caught between a hard place and a rock. She read my expression and smirked. I'll get the blood then, unless you still want to refuse. I closed my eyes. Shit, Hazel, think. She impatiently sighed. Look, if this is going to be an issue, then I'll get the doctor. No, wait, I called after her, trying to stop her or at the very least stall her. She swung round, away from the door, and snapped. So, are you going to behave? Or am I going to have to make you? I winced and quickly said, I'll behave. I mean, I'll have something to eat. A flash of triumph crossed her eyes, and she said with cheerful reply, Good, I'll go and get your dinner. A wave of defeat washed over me, and I sunk down into the pillows. What could I do? My only option was to drink the damn poison and maybe try to throw it up, and hope that might stop it from working. Tearfully, I closed my eyes and thought of Casper and that stupid door in my head. Just then, I heard a voice in my head. What are you doing, Field? You can't seriously be thinking about drinking that poisoned blood. Olivia's voice yelled angrily at me. I don't know what to do. I've got no other choice, I whispered out loud. You're a motherfucking vampire, Field. Think of something better than giving up, for fuck's sake. Olivia's voice screamed in my head. The nurse walked back into the room with a large cooler box filled with blood bags and dropped it on the floor. She turned to me and eyed me up and down suspiciously. Did I just hear you say something? I shook my head. No, I didn't say anything. She didn't look convinced and said, If you're up to something, Missy, then I'm getting the doctor down and you are going to go nights. I'll be good, I said. Aw, Field, you can't be serious. You're not going to sit there and let this bitch walk all over you. Do something. Be a badass for once in your life, Field. Olivia's voice echoed in my head. A badass? What could I possibly do that was badass? Then I had a thought, or rather something Olivia had said earlier suddenly repeated itself in my head. I was a motherfucking vampires. Before you feed, I just need to check your vitals, the nurse said, interrupting my train of thought. Oh, okay, I replied, sitting perfectly still on the bed. She smirked as she walked over to the bed and said, I'm glad to see that you're cooperating. Well, I'm pretty hungry, I said quietly, feeling my entire body tensing. I was watching her, waiting for her to let down her guard. I won't be long, then I'll get your breakfast for you, she said, leaning over me. Thank you, I replied. She paused, sensing something off in my voice. Her head turned to look at me, but I struck her hard and fast. I grabbed her shoulders and using all my strength pushed her against the mattress and held her down. She was much weaker than me, her body trembled in my grip. Gasping, she cried, What are you doing? I held her tightly and replied, Having breakfast. Before she could respond, I sank my teeth into her, roughly tearing open her throat. Hot blood spurted from her neck, gushing into my mouth. I held her close to me and began drinking deeply. Her blood was fresh and unfettered by poison. It ran into my mouth like a river of life, replenishing me. My grip tightened on her, and soon the struggling and crying stopped, and her once rigid frame became floppy and ragdoll-like in my arms. The hunger inside me subsided, and I lifted my mouth away from the gash from her neck. I looked down at her, and saw her staring up at me with wide, frightened eyes. Her mouth was gaping open, as if she was trying to scream but no sound was coming out. I studied her expression for a few seconds, then dropped her to the floor, discarding her like a candy wrapper. She gazed up at me, clutching her throat, trying to stem the uncontrollable bleeding seeping between her fingers. Tears were rolling down her face, and she began to gasp. I'm dying. Oh my God, I'm dying. You? I said in a disinterested voice. Yes, I'm dying. Help me, she begged. I crouched down next to her and said, Don't be silly. You're not dying. She let out an anguished cry and replied, You don't understand. I'm not like you. I don't heal quickly. I'm losing too much blood. Aw, it's all right. I smiled at her. I've got some blood right here for you. In fact, I have a whole box full of the stuff. What? She said dryly, her eyes wide with terror. Look, I said, calmly getting up and crossing the room to the cooler box filled with bags of poisoned blood. There is enough blood here to replenish you twice over. Wait, no, I can't drink that, please, she cried. Of course you can, I replied. If you don't, you'll die. Your Highness, please, I'm begging you, she cried. I ignored her pleas and opened the cooler box and grabbed several bags of poisoned blood. Carefully, I walked back over to her with the bags of blood. Then standing over her, I stared down at her. The blood was now pooling around her, soaking my poor toes. She looked up at me, her eyes frantic and desperate, pleading for help. I smiled down at her and opened my arms, letting the bags of poisoned blood to drop into her lap. Then taking a step back, I turned away and said, Bon appetit. Chapter 58. Please help me, the nurse cried desperately as I walked away from her. I paused to turn and sling her an indifferent look and said, You've two choices. Number 1, continue to bleed out and die. Or number 2, drink those bags of blood that were meant for me. I can't drink that blood, you don't understand, she stammered. Oh, I understand. You've poisoned those blood bags, and you know what will happen to your body when you drink them. You'll finally get to feel the pain I felt when I first woke up, I replied, remembering the terrible searing pain in my abdomen and the uncontrollable retching that I'd experienced after waking up from my coma. She opened her mouth to argue my point, but quickly fell quiet. I studied her as she thought carefully about what to say next me. I wondered if she'd be honest and confess her guilt, or continue to pretend that she was innocent in all of this. Calmly, she composed herself and said to me, You're having a delusion, Your Highness. Those blood bags are perfectly safe. You just think that they're poisoned because you're sick. Oh, really? I laughed. Then you won't mind drinking them. She winced and floundered for something to say. Her eyes nervously eyed up the bags of blood I dumped on her, and she shook her head. No, please. You don't understand, she said, her voice breaking up. I can't drink them. Why not? I mean, if they're perfectly safe, then why can't you drink them? I asked. She fell silent again, unable or unwilling to provide me with an answer. Her silence was infuriating. She'd clearly been caught out, so there was no point in keeping up the charade. I folded my arms across my chest and said, Look, if you admit the truth and tell me why you're trying to poison me, then I might consider calling for help. I don't know what you're talking about, she replied. Fine, I said, throwing up my hands in defeat. You can lie there and bleed to death. See if I care. I thought this might provoke some kind of response. But to my surprise, she continued to plea her innocence with the same tired excuses. Frustrated and annoyed, I told her, I've explained your choices, so now choose. You don't understand, she said for the millionth time. I do understand. I just don't care. Now, make your choice, I said, and turned my back on her and walked across the room. Nurse Poison cried out in anguish, while I crawled back into bed and pulled the bed covers around me to conserve the precious little warmth that I had. If I could, I'd had walked out the room and let her get on with it. But I worried that if I left the room, the guards might notice and someone would discover her. So, I sat on the bed and quietly waited to see what she'd do. At this point, I'd half expected to feel some kind of guilt or remorse for what I'd done to her. But oddly, it never came. Sure, I know she is a poisoning bitch and she deserved to get a taste of her own medicine or poison, but this wasn't me. This wasn't my style or philosophy. I wasn't an angry or revengeful person, and I certainly wasn't a murderer, so why didn't I feel bad about it or even slightly uncomfortable with myself? I was literally watching this woman bleed out in front of me, and I was completely unaffected. What the hell's wrong with me? I wanted to feel sorry for her, or at least a tiny bit bad about what I'd done to her, but I couldn't. The guilt I'd half expected never came, and instead I just felt this deep sense of zen-like well-being, that this woman, this threat to my being and my unborn baby, was being successfully dealt with. My hand rested protectively over my stomach, and I felt a wave of incredible warmth and love wash over me as I imagined my little baby sleeping quietly and safely inside of me. You're not the first one this has happened to, a thready voice from across the room rasped. I lifted my head up and saw the nurse staring at me with wide, vacant eyes from across the room. She was still lying down on the floor, but she seemed paler, or rather an unnatural shade of waxy gray. Her mouth hung open unnaturally as her lungs struggled to drag in enough air. It was horrible to look at, and it reminded me of the undead corpses that had overseen my wedding to Casper that night in the graveyard on Halloween. "What do you mean I'm not the first person?" I asked. Her thin blue lips curved into a smirk and she said, gasping, "You think you're special? But we've done this before. Dozens of times." "What do you mean?" I asked, crawling to the edge of the bed. "There've been so many, like you. I can see them now. I can see them all," she said, looking into an empty, dark corner of the bedroom. I got up from the bed and walked over to her, and was careful to tiptoe around the sticky black pool of blood that surrounded her. Leaning over her, I said, "Tell me what you mean and I'll call for help." "It's too late," she said. "No," I said, dropping down to my knees, forgetting about blood. I grabbed her shoulders and lightly shook them. "You need to tell me why," I demanded. She looked up at me and smirked. Then, with one final exhale, her eyes became glassy and vacant. Suddenly, I felt the heavy weight of her shoulders sagging against my hold as the tension in her body dissolved into limp lifelessness. I let go of her shoulders and rocked back on my heels. Shit, she was dead. Chapter 59. She was dead. I reached out to touch her shoulder, but stopped and looked up when the bedroom door unexpectedly opened. Like a surreal nightmare, Henrietta strolled in carrying a basket filled with magazines, cookies, and clean clothes. She was bright-eyed and smiling, and completely unaware of the horror scene which she'd just walked into. She turned on her heel, calling my name, and then locked eyes on me. I was sitting there on the floor, covered in blood, hovering over the dead corpse of my nurse. She dropped the basket and jumped backwards, covering her hand over her mouth. She dropped the basket of things and jumped backwards in fright, suppressing a tiny scream. Outside, there was low murmurs of concerned whispering, followed by a gentle knock on the door, followed by the voice of a guard asking, "Does Your Majesty require assistance?" "No," Henrietta practically screamed, running towards the bedroom door and holding it shut. "I require all of you to stand guard at the bottom of the corridor and ensure that I'm given some privacy with the princess," she explained. "Very well, Your Majesty," the guard said. Henrietta stayed glued to the spot with both hands firmly resting against the door while she listened to the guards walk away. While I, on the other hand, sat next to the dead body in a state of confusion and shock. When the guards were far enough away, she moved from the door and walked over to me. "What happened?" she asked. "She was trying to poison me. I had to protect myself and the baby," I replied weakly. She looked at the body and focused in on the horrific wound on the nurse's throat. Pointing at the neck, she asked, "Did you do that?" I nodded my head slowly and mouthed the words, "Yes." "Okay, Hazel, listen to me. I believe you, I swear. But right now we need to work out a way of getting rid of the dead body," Henrietta said, staring down at the body. I didn't move. Instead, I stared back her in dazed astonishment, unable to believe that she was so willing and nonchalant about helping me dispose of the body. She rolled up the sleeves of her pastel pink designer dress and kicked off her expensive heels, then leaned down and grabbed the nurse by her ankles. Then looking up at me, she said, "Come on, you take her arms and we'll pull her into the bathroom." I blinked and said aloud the first thing that floated into my head, "Wait, you've done this before?" My question caught Henrietta off guard and she scowled at me. "Of course I haven't. But I know this fortress better than you, and I also know there are plenty of ways to sneak things in and out undetected. It's just the things I usually sneak in and out aren't dead bodies," she added irritably. "Okay," I winced, struggling up onto my feet and taking hold of the nurse's wrists. Henrietta counted to 3 and we both hoisted the body off the floor. The body sagged in the middle, and the empty room filled with sound of blood dripping from the body and spattering against the hard floor. My stomach lurched and I made a dry, retching sound as we took our first step forward. My bare feet stepped into the pool of cold, sticky blood on the floor, and I felt the crimson goo sink between my toes. Unable to contain my disgust, I cursed. "This is so fucking gross." Henrietta shot me a sympathetic glance and said, "Try not to think about it. You can clean up once we get her into the bath." So I tried not to think about it and instead concentrated on putting one foot in front of the other. But even that was difficult, as the blood on the bottom of my feet made the floor feel sticky to walk on. I cringed with every step I took forward and was quickly relieved when carried the body over the bathroom threshold. Drop the body here and I'll drag her into the tub. While you strip the linen from the bed, we need something to soak up all that blood, Henrietta instructed. I followed her instructions, lowering the body to the floor and walking back across the room to the bed. I stripped the sheet off and threw it over the large puddle of blood on the floor, then headed back to the bathroom. Henrietta had wrestled the body into the tub and was now filling the wash basin with water. She glanced over to me and said, "We need to get you clean enough to move to your new quarters." "What?" I asked. "You're being moved, Hazel. That's why I came down here. Casper sent Nico to ask me to move you." "I just never imagined I'd end up walking into all this," she said. "I'm sorry," I said numbly. "Never mind about that. Come here and sit down by me," she beckoned softly. "We need to get you clean enough to walk to your new quarters." I murmured a silent, "Okay," and tiptoed across the bathroom floor, avoiding the blood and broken mirror. My whole brain had gone into overload and I was struggling to think straight. I sat down on the bathroom countertop and gazed down at the floor. Henrietta shuffled around me and picked up a fluffy cotton flannel and dipped it into a bowl of soapy warm water. Then, wringing it out, she began to gently dab at the dried blood splatters on my face. There is a self-contained apartment concealed within this fortress for members of the royal family. It's been forgotten and abandoned for centuries. It was designed to be used by the royal family in the event of an attack upon the city. But it soon became redundant when Felix, the old king, established his new world order. We never had any real political enemies after that, except for a few nutjobs. Do you think that's what she was? I said, nodding towards the body in the bathtub. Perhaps, Henrietta shrugged. It's difficult to tell, really, now that she's dead. Wait, she did say something before she died. She said that I wasn't the only person this had happened to. She said that there were others. What do you think she meant? I mean, have there been others like me? Other girls? I asked. Henrietta shook her head. No, there can only be one, and she can never be replaced. Lord knows. Louis has never refrained from reminding me of this, every single day of our wretched marriage. But I wouldn't take much notice about what she'd had to say while she was dying. It was probably just the delirious ramblings of a madwoman. I don't know, she didn't seem crazy when she said it, I mused. Henrietta shrugged. I think you're overthinking things. This city and this court is full of crazies. And there are even more crazies outside in the big wide world. And not all of them are vampires and humans. For all we know, this woman might have been a werewolf sympathizer, or an anti-monarchist, or a plain old psychopath without any political motive. She dropped the flannel back into the bowl and grabbed a towel off the rail and patted my face dry. There, she said, smiling. No one will ever find out what happened here tonight. I looked uneasily across the room to the body laid in the tub and said, well, whoever she is, someone is going to find out about this. I mean, someone is going to notice she's missing, and just look at all the blood out there. The room looks like a scene from a Hammer horror movie. I mean, even if we got rid of the body, it's still going to look like someone was murdered in this room. Henrietta shook her head and said, no one is going to come back into this room once we've left. There are only a handful of people who even know you're down here, so the only reason anybody would come into this room would be to check on you. But now that you're leaving, there'd be no reason for anyone to come down here. Once we leave, I'll have the guards lock up this room and order them not to allow anyone to go inside it. But what if someone goes inside? I asked. Chapter 60. To me, Henrietta's plan was as bomb-proof as a house of cards. There was so much that could potentially go wrong. It'd only take one person to realize that the nurse was missing, or another to accidentally stumble across the bloody room, then we'd be discovered. Or at least I would. And I hadn't even began to ponder the possibilities of what might happen if we were caught. There was way too much risk involved, but neither of us had a better plan. Hopefully, Henrietta's plan to exploit her power as queen would buy us the time we needed to find a way of getting rid of the body. Making our final preparations to leave the room, I changed into a fresh pair of clothes Henrietta had brought me, while she dumped the soiled sheets we'd used to mop up the blood into the bathtub along with the body. Glancing me over, she wiped a small fleck of blood from my skin and straightened up the hem of the simple black dress she'd brought for me to wear. She smiled to herself, obviously pleased with her handiwork, and said, "I think we're ready now." My stomach rolled with anxiety, and I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Henrietta grabbed my hand and gave it a squeeze. "Just let me do the talking and you'll be fine," she said calmly. I opened my eyes and weakly nodded in reply, and then, with tentative steps, I followed her lead. She opened the door and ushered me into the hallway where several guards stood waiting for us. They all studied us, as if they suspected something was wrong. They looked to Henrietta for an answer, and she coolly smiled back at them. "We're ready to leave now." The tense look on their faces eased momentarily before their military training kicked in, and they gathered around us, in formation to escort us to the apartment. Henrietta held my hand firmly and quickly announced, "However, before we leave, I want one of you to remain behind and guard the room. I've left some valuables in that room, and will send someone to collect them later. But until then, I want one of you posted at that door, and you must make sure that no one goes into that room." What must have been the lead guard quickly acknowledged her order with a curt nod, and yelled at one of the guards to stand duty by the door. The guard next to me immediately broke away from formation and marched towards the door. He passed by my shoulder, and as he did so, I noticed him leaning in slightly and breathing in. A cold unease rippled down my back, and I wondered, did he just smell me? I awkwardly cringed away from him, remembering that we'd only washed off the blood on my body that had been visible on my arms, legs, and face. Underneath the plain black dress Henrietta had chosen for me, I was coated in blood. Oh shit, the guards could smell the nurse's blood under my clothes. Trying to hold my nerve, I gave Henrietta's hand a tight squeeze in an attempt to silently communicate my concern. Henrietta spared me a quick glance, and she said warmly, "Don't worry, Hazel, we'll have you settled into your new apartment in no time." I couldn't tell whether she was being genuinely sincere or trying to overcompensate for my own acting inability. But whatever the case, the rest of the guards did not seem to pay attention to my odd behavior or notice the smell of blood emanating from my dress. Once the guard was in place, in front of the bedroom door, we walked forward, traveling along the dark stone corridor. 2 guards walked ahead of us, and 2 guards followed behind at the rear, while the other 3 guards flanked either side of us. I conscientiously tried to walk precisely in the middle of them, so that I'd avoid accidentally brushing past one of them and giving them waft of leftover nurse. I kept close to Henrietta and hoped that we wouldn't be traveling far. We moved quickly through the dark stone corridor and into another corridor, then up a tight, winding spiral staircase. The passageways were surprisingly claustrophobic, and for most of the part we traveled single file with guards walking both ahead of us and behind us. The fort reminded me of a medieval castle, with thick, impenetrable stone walls. I'd imagine that any invading enemy would quickly become disorientated in the labyrinth of passageways that this fort possessed. In fact, if you asked me to try and retrace my steps back to my room, I'd be pretty sure that I couldn't, simply because of all the twists and turns we'd taken. Sticking close to Henrietta, I wondered if we were taking a back route or a secret route. The reason for this was the noticeable absence of soldiers around us. I mean, we'd been walking close to 10 minutes through this network of tunnels, corridors, and stairs, and during that time, we'd not encountered a single soldier. It seemed so odd that a supposedly active fortress would appear so barren. Eventually, we came to a small wooden door, which at first glance didn't appear particularly exceptional. However, on closer inspection, there was a small inscription carved into the stone above the door. Reading it out loud, I said, "Adeo Rex, a Regilex." Then I turned to Henrietta and asked, "What does that mean?" It's an old Latin saying meaning, "From God, the King, from the King, the law." It's a reminder to anyone who might challenge the king's authority that his power is divinely ordained and therefore absolute, she explained. "So, it's there to deter revolutionaries?" I asked curiously. Perhaps. I imagine when it was written, people were much more God-fearing back then than they are now. But for people in the know, it's a marker that indicates the entrance to the royal family's secret apartment, she said, turning the door handle and opening the door.